Good morning. I am Dr. James Whitaker from American Urologist, and I want to start with a number that I think puts the next 7 minutes of your life in perspective. 7. That is the number of minutes that a specific morning movement sequence takes, done right in your own home, with no equipment, no gym membership, and no fitness experience required. And the reason I am calling it 7 minutes specifically, not 10, not 15, not the vague, go do some exercise that you hear from every doctor, is that 7 minutes is the precise duration at which this specific sequence produces the biological effects I am going to describe. Not because of some arbitrary cutoff, but because of what happens in your body during each of the 3 components, and how long each component needs to run to trigger its target mechanism fully. I am also going to tell you something about timing that changes the entire equation. Because this routine done in the morning, specifically in the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking, produces fundamentally different results than the same exact movements done in the afternoon or evening. Not marginally different, fundamentally different. In a way that I am going to explain clearly so that you understand why the timing is not optional. But let me start with Terry. Terry is 63 years old, a retired firefighter from Richmond, Virginia. Terry had been physically active his entire adult life. Firefighting kept him in shape, kept him strong, kept his cardiovascular system working hard. When he retired at 60, he expected to maintain a similar level of physical capability with less demanding daily activity. What actually happened was a rapid and surprising decline. Within 18 months of retirement, he was exhausted by 10 in the morning. He had gained 12 pounds, primarily in the abdominal area, despite eating similarly to how he always had. His morning energy was low, his afternoon energy was lower, and by 7 in the evening, he was ready for bed. His doctor, at his 62-year annual physical, said his labs were fine and suggested he start exercising regularly. Terry, who had been physically fit his entire adult life, found the suggestion almost offensive. He was already walking. He was already doing things around the house. He was not sedentary. But something was clearly wrong, and a recommendation to exercise was not an answer. What was wrong, and what Terry did not know, was that his circadian biology had shifted. When you work physically demanding, schedule-driven work for decades, your body's circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour clock that governs cortisol release, body temperature, metabolism, and dozens of other biological functions, is anchored to that schedule. It knows when to wake up, when to be alert, when to produce energy, and when to wind down because the external demands of your work have been calibrating it consistently for years. When retirement removes those external anchors, the circadian rhythm drifts. Cortisol peaks become blunted and mistimed. The morning alertness signal weakens. Energy production throughout the day becomes inconsistent. And mitochondrial activation, the cellular energy production that drives physical capability, loses its daily rhythm without the regular physical demands that used to stimulate it. The 7-minute morning routine is a daily biological reset. It recalibrates the circadian rhythm by providing the physical and sensory inputs that the rhythm uses as anchors. Done at the same time every morning, it tells your biology, this is when the day starts. This is when energy production needs to be high. This is the rhythm we are following. And within 2 to 3 weeks of consistent daily practice, the biology responds by re-establishing the cortisol and energy production patterns that make you feel like yourself again. Here is the routine. 3 components, in order, no rest between them unless genuinely needed, and done within the first 30 minutes of waking. Component 1 is 2 minutes of resistance band pulls, or if you do not have a resistance band, 2 minutes of wall push-pulls. Wall push-pulls are standing with your hands flat on a wall at shoulder height, and alternating between pushing against the wall with straight arms and pulling yourself slightly toward it with bent arms, a pushing and pulling motion using the wall as resistance. This is not about strength. This is about muscle activation. When large muscle groups are activated through resistance within the first 30 minutes of waking, they send a signal to the adrenal glands that produces a controlled, measured cortisol pulse. Not the uncontrolled cortisol surge that comes from scrolling alarming news. A deliberate, measured, calibrating cortisol pulse that sharpens morning alertness without spiking blood pressure. This is the cortisol awakening response being directed rather than being left to its own devices. 2 minutes. Component 2 is 3 minutes of sunlight exposure combined with breathing. This means going outside, even to a doorstep, even to a balcony, even to stand in front of an open window if weather prevents going out, and breathing slowly and deeply while your eyes receive natural light. Not looking at the sun, just being in natural light with eyes open. Natural light in the first 30 minutes of waking triggers the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master circadian clock, through the retinal photoreceptors in a way that no indoor light replicates. It tells your brain, it is day, it is time to be awake and alert. Start calibrating the cortisol and melatonin curves for the next 24 hours. This single input is one of the most powerful circadian anchors available to the human biology. The slow breathing during those 3 minutes simultaneously activates the vagus nerve, moderating the cortisol pulse from component 1 and preventing it from overshooting into anxiety. 3 minutes of standing in natural light, breathing slowly. That is it. Component 3 is 2 minutes of calf raises. Standing with feet hip-width apart, rising onto your toes and lowering back down, repeatedly, for 2 minutes. This sounds almost too simple, but the calves contain the highest density of mitochondria per cell of any muscle in the human body. They are designed for sustained, repetitive activity because their evolutionary job was walking long distances. When you perform calf raises for 2 minutes, you are specifically and powerfully activating the highest mitochondria density muscle tissue in your body. Activated mitochondria produce more ATP. More ATP means more cellular energy throughout the body, not just in the calves. Mitochondrial activation in one tissue group sends metabolic signals that raise energy production system-wide. 2 minutes of calf raises triggers a mitochondrial activation cascade that research has shown sustains elevated ATP production for 2 to 4 hours. This is why 2 in the afternoon feels different on mornings when you did this versus mornings when you did not. The mitochondrial activation from the morning practice is still running. 2 minutes resistance, 3 minutes sunlight and breathing, 2 minutes calf raises, 7 minutes total, every morning. Now let me tell you about Randy. Randy is 68 years old, a retired diesel mechanic from Tucson, Arizona. Randy had a different barrier from Terry. Terry's problem was a drifted circadian rhythm from retirement. Randy's problem was that he had never had a morning routine in his life. 40 years of shift work had given him wildly inconsistent wake times, and his biology had never had a stable anchor to organize itself around. His energy was chaotic, sometimes good in the morning, sometimes terrible, no predictability, no pattern he could count on. He could not plan his days around his energy because his energy had no schedule. Randy started the 7-minute routine at a consistent time. He chose 6:15 every morning, regardless of what time he had gone to bed. The consistency of the timing was as important as the routine itself, his daughter told him after reading about circadian biology. The first week was rough. He was not sleeping at consistent times, and waking at 6:15 felt arbitrary and slightly uncomfortable. The second week felt more natural. The third week, he told his daughter he had noticed something he had not experienced since his 40s. He was reliably alert in the morning. Not just awake, alert, functional, ready. His afternoon energy, which had always been his worst time of day, had improved. By week 6, Randy had reorganized his entire day around his new energy pattern, doing the things that required concentration and effort in the morning and early afternoon, saving low-demand activities for the evening. He told me the 7 minutes had given him something more valuable than energy. It had given him predictability. He finally knew what his body was going to do when. There are 2 things that enhance the results of this routine significantly. The first is temperature contrast after the routine. After your 7 minutes, splash cold water on your face and the back of your neck for 30 seconds before your shower. Cold water exposure activates norepinephrine release, a neurotransmitter that drives alertness, focus, and mood. Studies from the Thrombosis Research Institute have shown that brief cold water exposure raises norepinephrine levels by 300% or more. 30 seconds of cold water on your face is not a cold plunge. It is accessible, immediate, and produces a noticeable sharpening of mental alertness that most men describe as feeling like their eyes suddenly opened fully for the first time all morning. The second enhancement is eating within 30 minutes of completing the routine. Not a large meal, but a protein source within 30 minutes of the movement sequence. The muscle activation from the routine creates an anabolic window during which dietary protein is most efficiently converted into muscle protein synthesis and used for mitochondrial repair. A hard-boiled egg, a few bites of Greek yogurt, a small amount of cottage cheese, something with protein, eaten within 30 minutes. This feeds the mitochondrial maintenance that the routine just initiated. On mornings when this window is not used, when men wait 2 hours for breakfast, the routine still works, but it works less efficiently. 7 minutes of morning movement. 30 seconds of cold water. Protein within 30 minutes. That is the complete protocol. Give it 3 weeks. Track your energy at 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. Track it honestly, every day. Because the trend over 3 weeks is more informative than any single day, and the trend for most men who do this consistently is unmistakably upward. If this video helped you, please hit like and subscribe. Leave your age and city in the comments. I want to know where you are watching from and how this works for you. Share this with a man who retired and lost his energy and has been told it is just getting older. It is not just getting older. It is a biological rhythm that needs a new anchor. And the anchor takes 7 minutes. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.